There is a force in this universe that never sleeps, never pauses, and never ignores what you continuously impress upon it. Every thought you repeat, every feeling you entertain, every story you accept about yourself is being heard far more deeply than you realize. Life is not happening randomly. The experiences, people, opportunities, and even the struggles you face are often reflections of the state you consistently occupy within yourself. Most people spend their lives asking for change while emotionally remaining attached to the same old identity. They hope for abundance while feeling lack. They desire love while feeling unworthy. They pray for success while secretly expecting failure. But the universe does not respond to words alone. It responds to conviction, assumption, and feeling. The moment you understand that your inner world is the true cause of your outer reality, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop fearing circumstances. Instead, you begin consciously creating from within. Tonight, you are going to discover how to align your thoughts, emotions, and imagination in a way that makes life move in your favor naturally and powerfully. Because the truth is simple, the universe is always listening. The question is, what story have you been telling it? Every moment of your life is being shaped by a conversation that most people never pay attention to. Long before an event appears in the outer world, it first lives within the mind as an inner dialogue. The words you whisper to yourself in silence, the assumptions you repeat throughout the day, and the emotional stories you continuously entertain are not harmless thoughts passing through your awareness. They are creative forces. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly speaking your future into existence through the conversations you hold within yourself. Most people spend their lives focusing on appearances while ignoring the inner cause behind them. They react to circumstances, complain about situations, and repeat stories of failure, rejection, delay, or limitation. Then they wonder why the same patterns continue appearing in their lives. But life does not simply respond to what you want occasionally. It responds to what you consistently accept as true about yourself. If your inner conversations are filled with doubt, fear, insecurity, and disappointment, the outer world eventually mirrors those states back to you in physical form. A person who constantly says within themselves, "Nothing ever works out for me," may think they are only expressing frustration, but they are actually planting seeds into the deeper layers of consciousness. Another person quietly repeats, "I am always supported. Things are always working in my favor," and unknowingly begins creating an entirely different experience of life. The outer world reflects the dominant story held within. This is why two people can face similar circumstances yet experience completely different outcomes. One lives from limitation while the other lives from possibility. Your inner conversations are most powerful when emotion is attached to them. It is not merely the words themselves that create, but the feeling behind them. A thought repeated with feeling becomes an assumption, and assumptions harden into facts over time. If you constantly relive painful memories internally, you continue feeding life to them. If you repeatedly imagine success, peace, love, abundance, and fulfillment while emotionally accepting them as natural, reality slowly reorganizes itself around those assumptions. The problem is that many people speak against their own desires without realizing it. They ask for abundance while inwardly saying, "I'll probably never have enough." They desire love while silently believing, "I'm not worthy of being chosen." They want success while repeatedly imagining failure. These hidden conversations overpower spoken affirmations because the subconscious responds more deeply to what feels true than to what is merely said for a few moments. To change your life, you must first change the way you speak within yourself. Become aware of the conversations happening in your mind throughout the day. Notice how often you criticize yourself, expect disappointment, or mentally argue with imaginary situations. Many people spend hours having invisible arguments, replaying old hurts, or anticipating negative outcomes. Without realizing it, they rehearse the very reality they wish to escape. Instead, begin deliberately creating new inner conversations. Speak to yourself as the version of you who already possesses the life you desire. If you seek success, hear people congratulating you. If you desire peace, feel yourself already secure and fulfilled. If you want love, internally experience being deeply valued and appreciated. These conversations may seem imaginary at first, but imagination consistently impressed with feeling becomes reality. At first, the outer world may appear unchanged, and this is where most people give up. They return to old thoughts because they trust appearances more than their inner power. But transformation begins within long before it becomes visible outside. Every new assumption requires persistence. The moment you refuse to return to the old story, your reality begins shifting in unseen ways. Remember this always: your inner conversations are not meaningless mental noise. They are instructions being sent into the creative force of life itself. The world around you is echoing the beliefs you repeatedly entertain within yourself. Change the conversation, and eventually you change the experience. Speak differently within, and life must respond differently without. There is a difference between simply wanting something and truly feeling that it already belongs to you. Most people spend their lives hoping, wishing, begging, and waiting, never realizing that creation does not respond to empty words alone. The deeper power lies in feeling. Feeling is the invisible force that impresses an idea upon the subconscious mind and transforms imagination into physical reality. Thoughts may begin the process, but feeling gives those thoughts life, energy, and creative power. Many people repeat positive statements every day yet see little change because inwardly they still feel fear, lack doubt, or unworthiness. A person may say, "I am successful," but if they continue feeling insecure and defeated inside, the feeling becomes stronger than the words. Life always mirrors the emotional state that feels most natural to you. This is why two people can repeat the same affirmation while only one experiences transformation. One speaks mechanically, while the other emotionally accepts the reality of what they are claiming. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is physically real and what is emotionally real. Whatever you consistently feel to be true becomes accepted as reality within you. Once accepted internally, life begins organizing itself to reflect that assumption externally. This is why feeling is so important. When you emotionally experience the wish fulfilled, you move from hoping into knowing. You stop trying to force reality and instead begin aligning with it inwardly. Think about moments in your life when fear completely took over your emotions. Even before anything happened physically, your body reacted as though the event were already real. Your heart raced, your mood shifted, and your mind became consumed by the imagined outcome. Why? Because feeling creates experience internally before it appears externally. The same principle works in your favor when consciously applied. If fear can create emotional certainty around negative outcomes, then faith and imagination can create emotional certainty around positive ones. Most people have been conditioned to depend entirely on physical evidence before allowing themselves to feel confident, grateful, or fulfilled. They say, "I'll feel successful when I see results," or "I'll feel loved when someone chooses me." But this keeps them trapped in endless waiting because the outer world simply reflects the inner emotional state already being occupied. The secret is to reverse the process. Feel the fulfillment first, and the evidence follows. This does not mean forcing exaggerated emotions or pretending to be excited all day. True creative feeling is often quiet, calm, natural, and certain. It feels like inner knowing rather than emotional intensity. When something finally feels natural within you, resistance begins to dissolve. You no longer feel desperate, because inwardly you already identify with the reality you desire. If you desire abundance, do not constantly feel anxiety about money. Instead, practice the emotional state of security and ease. If you desire love, stop feeding loneliness and rejection within yourself. Begin feeling valued, chosen, and appreciated internally. If you desire success, stop emotionally identifying with failure or delay. Feel yourself already capable, confident, and victorious now. The challenge is persistence. The outer world may temporarily show conditions that contradict your new feeling, and many people immediately return to fear. But appearances are only reflections of past states. They are echoes of old assumptions. If you continue returning to the feeling of your desired reality despite appearances, eventually the external world must conform. Creation is always happening through feeling, whether consciously or unconsciously. Every emotion you repeatedly entertain becomes a signal impressed upon the deeper mind. This is why guarding your emotional state is one of the most powerful things you can do. You are not only reacting to life, you are shaping it from within. The moment you understand that feeling is the true language of creation, you stop trying to fight the outer world and begin mastering the inner one. You realize that reality is not changed by force, struggle, or endless effort, but by inward acceptance. Feel the reality you desire so deeply that it becomes familiar to your soul. Once it feels natural within you, the outer world has no choice but to eventually mirror it back. Most people live their entire lives as prisoners of appearances. They wake up every day checking circumstances, reacting emotionally to what they see, and allowing external conditions to determine their inner state. If something goes wrong, they feel defeated. If delays appear, they assume failure. If people behave negatively toward them, they immediately accept rejection as truth. Without realizing it, they hand their creative power over to the outer world and become followers of circumstances instead of directors of reality. But circumstances are not permanent truths. They are only reflections of previously accepted assumptions, thoughts, and emotional states. What you see today is often the result of old beliefs that have already been impressed upon the subconscious mind. Yet most people continue reacting to those reflections emotionally, which only recreates the same experiences again and again. They look at lack and continue feeling poor. They look at loneliness and continue feeling unloved. They look at obstacles and continue feeling powerless. In doing so, they unknowingly remain loyal to the very reality they wish to escape. The outer world is like a mirror. Imagine standing in front of a mirror looking unhappy, and then demanding that the reflection smile first before you do. It would be impossible. The reflection can only mirror the expression you are already embodying. Life works in the same way. The world reflects the state you consistently occupy within yourself. If you wait for circumstances to change before changing internally, you remain trapped in the same cycle forever. This is why you must stop allowing appearances to control your emotional state. The moment you understand that circumstances do not create you, but rather reveal the state you have been living from, everything begins to shift. You stop reacting so emotionally to temporary situations because you realize they are not final. They are simply echoes of past assumptions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What state have I been occupying within myself?" Most people unknowingly direct their lives through fear and reaction. When they experience financial problems, They spend all day mentally rehearsing more lack and failure. When relationships become difficult, they repeatedly imagine abandonment, betrayal, or rejection. When obstacles appear, they emotionally surrender to defeat. Yet, whatever you continuously focus on with emotion gains creative power within your life. Attention energizes reality. What you persistently react to, you continue sustaining. To direct your reality consciously, you must learn to remain inwardly faithful to the reality you desire, regardless of temporary appearances. This does not mean denying the existence of current circumstances. It means refusing to emotionally submit to them as permanent truth. You begin choosing your inner state deliberately instead of allowing the external world to choose it for you. If life currently shows limitation, begin inwardly identifying with abundance. If circumstances show delay, remain loyal to the feeling of fulfillment. If people around you express negativity, continue occupying the state of confidence, peace, and certainty within yourself. This is true inner mastery, the ability to hold your desired state despite contradictory appearances. The powerful truth is that circumstances are far more fluid than they appear. People change. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. Doors open in ways the logical mind could never predict. Entire realities shift when the inner state changes. But these transformations usually occur after a person stops obsessing over the evidence and starts embodying the desired reality internally. Many people delay their own manifestations because they constantly check for proof. They search for signs every day, wondering if things are working, becoming discouraged when nothing immediately changes. But this only keeps attention fixed on absence. A directed mind does not beg for evidence. It assumes the reality inwardly and allows life to reorganize itself naturally. You were never meant to be controlled by circumstances. You were meant to direct them through the state you occupy within yourself. The moment you stop reacting to appearances and begin consciously choosing your inner reality, you reclaim your creative power. And when your inner state changes consistently enough, the outer world eventually has no choice but to reflect the transformation back to you. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must wait for external proof before becoming the person they desire to be. They wait for money before feeling abundant, wait for love before feeling worthy, wait for success before feeling confident, and wait for opportunities before believing in themselves. But this way of thinking keeps them trapped in a constant cycle of chasing, because the outer world can only reflect the identity they already accept within themselves. Your life does not simply respond to what you want, it responds to who you believe you are. Identity is the foundation of every experience. A person who secretly identifies with failure will continue recreating obstacles even when opportunities appear. A person who identifies with rejection will often attract situations that confirm those beliefs. The subconscious mind always works to remain consistent with the version of self you continuously occupy. This is why true transformation begins with assumption. To assume means to inwardly accept something as already true before physical evidence appears. It is the decision to mentally and emotionally become the version of yourself who already possesses the reality you desire. Instead of waiting for life to change you, you change yourself inwardly first, and then life begins reflecting that transformation outwardly. Most people misunderstand this principle because they believe assumption is merely pretending. But it is far deeper than acting or forcing false confidence. It is the gradual acceptance of a new self concept. It is choosing to identify with possibility instead of limitation. When you repeatedly return to the feeling and perspective of the version of yourself who already has what you desire, the new identity slowly becomes natural within you. Think about how differently a secure person moves through life compared to someone consumed by fear and doubt. A confident person does not constantly seek validation because they already feel worthy within themselves. A person who feels abundant does not emotionally panic over temporary financial situations because abundance has become part of their identity. A loved person does not obsessively chase affection because they already feel chosen internally. Everything changes when identity changes. The problem is that many people continue emotionally attached to old versions of themselves while trying to create new results. They want a new life while repeatedly thinking from the same fearful mindset. They affirm success while inwardly identifying as unsuccessful. They desire healthy relationships while still carrying the identity of someone who expects disappointment. The outer world faithfully mirrors whichever identity feels most real within you. To consciously transform your reality, you must begin asking yourself a different question. Instead of asking, "How can I get what I want?" ask, "Who would I be if I already had it?" How would you think? How would you speak to yourself? How would you walk through life? What emotional state would feel natural to you? These questions shift your focus away from lack and move you into identification with fulfillment. This does not mean becoming arrogant or unrealistic. It means embodying inward certainty instead of dependence on external validation. You no longer live emotionally chained to appearances because your identity is no longer built upon temporary circumstances. You begin living from the desired state instead of constantly longing for it. At first, the old identity may try to pull you back. Fear, doubt, and old emotional patterns may resurface because the mind naturally clings to familiarity. But every time you return to the new assumption, you weaken the old version of yourself and strengthen the new one. Persistence is what allows the assumed identity to harden into reality. Eventually, what once felt imaginary begins feeling normal. Confidence becomes natural. Abundance feels expected. Peace replaces desperation. And when the inner transformation becomes stable, the outer world begins shifting in ways that seem almost unbelievable. Opportunities arise, relationships change, doors open, and circumstances reorganize themselves to match the person you have become within. The truth is simple yet powerful. You do not attract what you merely wish for. You attract what you identify with. The moment you assume the version of yourself who already has the life you desire, you begin moving into alignment with that reality. Become it inwardly first, and the outer world will eventually reflect the assumption you persist in believing. Every great transformation begins invisibly. Before a dream becomes reality, before circumstances shift, before opportunities appear, something first changes within the human imagination. Yet this is the stage where most people fail. They become inspired for a moment, imagine a better future for a few days, and then abandon the assumption the moment reality appears unchanged. They expect immediate proof, and when they do not see results quickly enough, they return to doubt, fear, and old patterns of thinking. But creation does not respond to occasional belief, it responds to persistence. Persistence is the bridge between imagination and physical reality. It is the ability to remain faithful to an unseen assumption even when the outer world offers no evidence yet. Most people understand how to desire something, but very few understand how to persist in the feeling of already having it. This is why so many dreams remain incomplete. The imagination begins the work, but persistence carries it into visible form. The outer world is often delayed because it reflects previous assumptions that were deeply impressed upon the subconscious mind over time. A person who has spent years identifying with limitation cannot always expect instant transformation after a few positive thoughts. Old beliefs have momentum. Old emotional patterns continue echoing through current circumstances. This is why persistence is necessary. You are not trying to force reality. You are allowing a new state to become dominant within you. Think of a seed planted into the earth. The moment it is planted, invisible activity begins beneath the surface, even though nothing is immediately visible above ground. Most people, however, dig up the seed every few days by returning to doubt and fear. They ask, "Is this working? Why hasn't anything happened yet?" In doing so, they interrupt their own creative process. Persistence means trusting the unseen process long enough for it to fully unfold. Many people unknowingly persist every day, but in negative assumptions. They persist in worrying. They persist in expecting disappointment. They persist in repeating stories of failure, rejection, and lack. Then they experience those conditions repeatedly and assume life is working against them. In reality, persistence itself is neutral. It simply strengthens whatever state is continuously occupied. If fear repeated consistently can create unwanted outcomes, then faith repeated consistently can create transformation. Persistence does not mean struggling emotionally or forcing yourself into exhausting positivity. True persistence is quieter than that. It is the calm decision to continue returning to the desired state no matter what appearances suggest. It is the refusal to let temporary circumstances define your identity. Even when nothing seems to change externally, inwardly you remain loyal to the reality you have accepted within yourself. There will be moments when doubt appears. There will be days when circumstances seem completely opposite to what you desire. But these moments are often tests of identity. Will you return to the old version of yourself, or will you persist in the new assumption? Every time you choose the new state, despite appearances, you strengthen it within your consciousness. The most powerful transformations often happen when a person stops desperately searching for evidence and simply remains faithful inwardly. Suddenly, unexpected opportunities appear. People begin behaving differently. Situations shift naturally. Doors open in ways logic could never predict. What once seemed impossible starts becoming normal because the inner assumption has become stable and dominant. Persistence is what transforms imagination from fantasy into fact. Without persistence, imagination remains only a temporary dream. But when you continuously return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your subconscious gradually accepts it as reality. Once accepted deeply enough, the outer world must eventually mirror it back. Never underestimate the power of remaining faithful to your vision. The reality you desire may already be forming in unseen ways beyond your current understanding. Every time you refuse to give up on the new story, you move closer to its physical expression. The unseen always comes before the seen. Persist long enough, and what once existed only in imagination will stand before you as undeniable fact. From this moment forward, remember this: you are not separate from the power that shapes reality. You are not powerless before circumstances, delays, or appearances. The world around you is not fixed, it is responding. Every assumption you persist in, every emotion you repeatedly return to, and every vision you accept as true is quietly molding your future. So stop identifying with limitation. Stop rehearsing failure. Stop giving your energy to fear, doubt, and old memories. Instead, begin now. See yourself differently. Speak to yourself differently. Feel the reality of the life you desire as though it already exists within you. Because the moment it feels natural inside, it begins moving toward you outside. Do not wait for the world to give you permission to believe in your greatness. Assume it now. Live from it now. Persist in it now. And watch how reality bends to match the person you have chosen to become. The universe has always been listening. Make sure from today onward it hears a new story. Thank you all for being here and sharing this moment together. If this message touched something within you, Do not let it remain just inspiration. Turn it into practice. Carry this understanding into your daily life, guard your inner conversations, and never underestimate the creative power within you. May your mind be filled with clarity, your heart with certainty, and your life with the evidence of the new reality you choose to assume. Thank you, and may everything you deeply desire begin unfolding in the most powerful